Hello there, Sam Neffendorf here, and I guide people to heal themselves by realizing what the precise root cause of their symptoms is, and through that, enable them to save years of suffering and also saving potentially thousands of pounds on trying every cure under the sun without getting results because they're not addressing things at the root cause. So, today, I'm going to talk about someone has asked me what's going on when we are constipated. So, constipation is, of course, a very common symptom which most people experience at some point. And well, there is a very good reason for that because there's some very general things that can lead to constipation. So, I'm going to go through those first, and then I will talk about some specific organ tissues with types of stress, conflict, which can be, can be involved as well. So actually, constipation can happen in any time that we're experiencing what's known as a stress phase. So when your body's more in that stressed, sympathetic, nervous system state, perhaps when you've got obsessive thinking, when you're going into overdrive, trying to resolve any kind of shock, and you're in what's known as the stress phase, which you can check out in a previous video that I will link to below about the phases of a healing cycle. But in that stress phase, digestion just slows down because it's not a priority for an organism to be digesting when they're in a fight or flight response biologically. So it can be just that there is that ongoing stress of any kind. You're in that sympathetic nervous system state. It can also be, while there are emotional reasons and conflicts behind all symptoms, there's also practical things that you need to have in place. And for digestion, there needs to be enough liquid intake. So if you're not having enough water, then that can be a simple thing to address, which can improve digestion and enable constipation to start flowing again. And related to that, there are some specific symptoms if you are feeling, if isolation, abandonment, or existential crisis is a feature of your life, then probably you will be holding on to excessive fluid as a survival response. Leads to all sorts of symptoms, including bloating, extra inflammation, and just holding on to as much water as possible. And that's going to lead to constipation in a lot of cases as well. Okay, so with that in mind, that it can happen in any sort of general, if you've got any stress responses going on or have the kidney collecting tubule, water retention going on as well, a couple more specific body tissues which can be involved are the intestinal muscles, so the muscles that surround your intestines and help to squeeze through whatever's going on. If those are triggered and also in the stress phase, then that can be preventing anything from happening and leading to constipation. And what this means from a meta perspective is shocks about an indigestible chunk. So that can either be literally indigestible food in nature and in wild, but as the metaphors that we create, some form of indigestible, hard to process information about something that's getting stuck and not moving on in your life. So some examples of that could be a property purchase. If you've ever bought a house, you might understand this, and it can just drag on and on and on. And if that's very stressful, if it's a shock that that's happening, then that could be the sort of thing that could lead to developing this intestinal muscle conflict. Court case, an ongoing, dragging on court case, anything like that. These sort of long, drawn out processes that you would just want to be over and move through, but you're dead just moving along like treacle. These sorts of things are the stresses that could lead to constipation. So if that is the case, if you've got something like that going on, then you can use whatever processes. For example, I would use EFT tapping to make peace and accept that this process is taking a long time, but realize it's not part of what's going on with you, and you don't have to reflect what's going on in that outer world, and therefore be emotionally affected by these processes, which it just bottleneck and get tedious, these kinds of things. So yeah, yeah, it's also, yeah, if you've got these, it could be similar with thoughts that you're ruminating on and not being able to let go. So obsessive thinking stuff going round and round. Again, this can happen in any stress phase. So that's an example of how any stress phase can be having this effect on you, of this, yeah, stuckness in thinking. So finding a way to process and move through that is going to be very valuable. Now, the other specific organ tissue, which can also be involved, is actually in the large intestine itself. So what's actually going on in there is more of a core survival issue. And if you've got, as with most of the lower intestinal stuff, it's related to the core survival, like indigestible anger, grudges, resentment, ugly conflicts about things going on in your life, which might feel like they have some sort of survival issue related to it. So metaphorically, like ugly family situations involving like money, inheritances, disputes, those kinds of things, ugly situations or experiences which at an unconscious level feel like they're a threat to your survival. And in this case, it can be related to, it can be happening, the constipation can be happening in the stress phase, as with all the other times, but you might also find that it can be a kind of looping effect of constipation and diarrhea as well, happening in the restoration phase, especially if you've got some form of chronic looping, repeating symptom going on. And so in this case, then it is about breaking those patterns, finding, as always, as well as finding the root cause event, beliefs, and life themes that have led to the symptoms, but finding all of the tracks, the triggers that actually remind you back to the original thing. And these might not always be directly related to the original situation or experience it consciously to you, but it can just be reminders unconsciously when you see a person that's involved in the situation or was involved in the situation, smell a smell or eat something that maybe you were eating around the time when you first went through the conflict. All of these things become sensory information that is then tracked back to those emotional responses. So you can also find an article on tracks that I wrote and how they develop. And so finding all of them, that's really important as well, especially if you're on one of these chronic, ongoing health conditions regarding constipation or anything else for that matter. Okay, so hope that gives you some information as to why you might be experiencing constipation. If you've got any more questions on it, or if you would like to have any other symptoms where I share some insights which might be helpful to you, then please just drop me a line, respond under this video or whatever, and I will make a video response to that. And if you have got symptoms that you've been struggling to resolve for a long time, or just which are uncomfortable, unpleasant for you, and you want to do something about it, then there'll also be a link around this video somewhere where you can book a call. So thanks for your attention. That's Sam at EFT Now. Bye for now.